Biggest struggle would be cancer number two, but to give you context, would be uh, when I was, how old was I? When I was 16, like I practically just turned 16. I got leukemia, CML, chronic myeloid leukemia. Yeah, I might not tell that story just because it's a little bit embarrassing. Like, I normally don't care about that kind of thing, but I don't know.
You don't have to if you don't want to.
And then um, it was bad, but it wasn't, like, the worst thing about it is the everyday pain that jump started. Because there's 100,000 things on top of it, you know. So, anyways, what was the question you asked me? I already forgot.
A biggest struggle that you made it through.
Oh, so I think it was January of last year. I went through. I was feeling kidney pain, and at first I thought it was a kidney stone, because that's as bad. Not as a, it's bad. Like, it's bad. It's not good. It feels like an organ has just recently exploded inside of your body, and this was worse. And so I called 911, and they got me, and eventually, well, not even that. God, it took like a week of sitting there screaming in pain every night and being in the hospital. And then eventually they released me within that week. And I still wasn't told anything. Nobody was visiting me, not my cancer doctor. Like, it was insane. Like, it was a fight to get anybody to help. And I had just got done doing a surgery, and he wouldn't come, and it was all kind of related. So, like, he should have been there. There was a lot of issues. It's always like that with people like this in the medical field. It's a shit show. And so, anyways, I get released, and that day, I get home finally, and it's like 3 or 4 hours after I was released. Pain started up again, but it was mild compared to what it had been. So it was like similar to a kidney stone, but I knew where it was leading. Called the ambulance again, get put up there, and then like a day and a half, something like that went by, and they were like, we're sending you to St. Louis. And I'm like, okay, I'd like to get the hell out of here anyways, because this place sucks. It is horrible. It just is, you get left there. Nobody talks to you. Nobody visits you. Nobody tells you what's going on for over a week. You know, like, that's insanity. None of your doctors come to see you, really. Like, we finally got one of them to come in, I think it was, but nothing came of that. Like, it was useless. And as I get wheeled into the ambulance, they tell the ambulance driver and stuff to not give me medication on the way up there. And they just go, what? And they're like, are you sure? And they made a big fuss about it. The doctors were, as usual, like, being total assholes about it, which I don't understand. It just doesn't make sense why you behave that way. And I remember going like a quarter of the way or so, and at one point the guy that was back there taking care of me, he goes, dude, if you're in pain and it's bad enough, like, I'm giving you pain meds. I don't care what they say. And I was just like, you're a good dude. Thank you. Thank God I was okay. I mean, the only thing I wasn't okay on was a rash was forming. And actually, I might give you the pictures if you decide that they're okay to put on there.
Yeah.
You might be interested, because the rash was insane.
Yeah.
The rash was so insane it took another division to come over, because they thought I had been out of country or something, because you only see this kind of thing in Africa. And which is super typical of me. Like, even the CML, for somebody at my age and everything else, it was like, yeah, that's not normal. It's super unusual. And then, so the rash was to my stomach and all the way to my toes. And it turned out to be vasculitis, which it didn't hurt. It was fine. Like, I had no problems with it. It was just red. It looked like a crab. Like, literally, it kind of was like a sci-fi movie or something. Like, you're transforming into an alien creature.
It's like Animorphs.
Yeah, it was really funny because
Uh,
I kept making fun of it. And the doctors kept coming in. Can we see it? I'm sorry, there's like 6 people here, but this is crazy. And eventually they got to know me well enough. They're like, I know you don't care, so is it cool? And I'm just like, yeah, document whatever you want. Because it would help them out in the future for somebody else anyways.
Yeah.
And I was never shy. I just don't care. And people get too hung up on weird things. So, so Mom was rubbing my feet that night. I think it was the night that I got there. There was so much happening, and I was so drugged. I don't know. Anyways, so she rubbed my feet for like 3 hours, which was the best thing ever. I think it was like 3.5 hours, no joke. Like, just the best. It was the least pain I had been in so long. It felt like I was human again, So nice. And they blew up the next morning. I'm not saying that metaphorically. Like, they blew up. So it's the individual pores, every one of them, which is thousands, blew up, mini explosions. So my feet were not well anymore. And I couldn't walk very well, obviously. Thank God the bottom of my feet were perfectly fine. Like, not a rash, nothing at all. Makes no sense. Act of God. Could not have ever walked, like, for who knows how long. It took months for my feet to heal. They still don't look right. And, yeah, that was unpleasant. And then having to deal with a staff that doesn't know basic bandaging or what is it called? Wound care, basic wound care. They don't have any of the basics. I know how to do a lot more than they do, which is always the case. And it just kind of shows you like there's a huge failure in the system in so many ways. Like, it's just deep rooted. But I took care and taught a lot of the nurses there what needed to be taught just for like basic care. And then thank God there was a nurse that showed up at one point. She had been to wound care school for like 3 or 6 months, whatever it took. I can't remember now. It might even be way less, like 6 weeks, which is more likely. She taught me a couple of things, which was good. And then I asked her to pass along her knowledge because it's so important to have. Like, I don't know why she hadn't done it before. It seems like a basic freaking thing.
Mm-hmm.
And she never did, so I did, obviously. It was always that. And so I taught every single person that came in, because it was every 3 days, your nurse would get recycled. Every 2 weeks, your doctor gets recycled. I was in that hospital for 2.5 months, somewhere around there. It was horrible. The night of, it was like every night screaming, basically. And then that pain got so bad because the doctors wouldn't take care of your pain not well enough. Like, they just wouldn't. Why, I don't know. And then it would get to a point where, like, we're telling the nurse over and over, and like the good ones were running around with their heads chopped off, basically, because unfortunately their hands were so tied where they just couldn't help without truly actually losing their license to even help anybody else ever again. It was like that serious. And then the doctor, there was only one doctor and staff for that tower, practically, is what it felt like. So in the 3 or 4 floors, there was one doctor taking care of all of it for the night. So even though I'm screaming at night, and you're asking for the doctor over and over, the nurses, they would eventually, after 5 hours or so, they would say, I'm not coming. Straight up. Like, just didn't care. I even had one doctor that worked the night that messed with me because he didn't like me personally, which is the craziest thing to do because I'm such a nice dude too. I'm not like mean to anybody unless they're being horrible and I'm in so much pain. I can get a little cranky. But he was messed up and he changed the meds one night where he halved my pain meds. You cut them in half. The nurses about lost her fucking mind. And he goes, but I know what to do. Thank God I had this guy. He was one of my favorites. I had like 3 favorites. He used to cut it. So it's like you push the pain meds as you're dripping the fluids, and you're doing it in the fluid line, and you're doing it really slow over a course of like 2 minutes, 3 minutes, something like that. And that is the stupidest thing. But for some reason that works. And I've taught a lot of nurses that technique ever since then because it's so effective. I mean, you can get so much more out of pain meds by just doing something so simple. And it got me through that night. He was a huge help. But that pain got so bad before surgery that I ended up having to astral project just to survive. It was like a life or death situation, and I knew that Father doesn't want us doing this kind of thing, but it was just like, I don't know what to do. And so I just kind of like did it and not completely conscious of like, yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and do this. You know, it was more like this is an act of survival, and it just kicked in, and all my old memories of things and know-hows like kind of just took over. And I, sure enough, next thing you know, I'm doing that. And now I'm not even seeing with my eyes again. And everything's green because that's just how it was sometimes. And then I remember looking down and seeing Mom. And I was just like, oh, it's horrible. And she didn't like it, obviously. And Dad had to hold me all night. So without somebody like physically grabbing you and pushing on the spots that hurt, it was not a situation you can like manage. It was another one of those things where you're just losing yourself. You know, you're just pain, and that's it. That's what exists. Thankfully, at that time, being in the state that I was in and the medication, I was able to be very I don't know how you say that, but I could feel everybody's emotions. And then I kind of, in a way, had asked Father to not let me feel the emotions of other people that were struggling in this hospital, to like let the walls be walls, even for me. And I don't want to. I just can't. I can't feel everybody. And thank God he did. It would have not been good. But so as bad as that got, it got just so much worse, which shouldn't even be a possibility. I mean, it really amazes me. Everything kind of amazed me at the end of the day, because it's just like, how am I feeling this much pain and not unconscious right now? Like, it actually irritated me. It pissed me off so much. I was angry. I was angry with, like, all the TV shows we grew up watching. I was like, people get knocked out constantly. Like, constantly, and then nothing happens and they get knocked out. Please knock me out. And I'm yelling at the doctors, knock me out. As much as I can speak, like, when I could speak, that was what I was saying. And then there was one point where I gave up. And then I thought of you and some other people, and it was like, I can't do that. But it was the surgery that really got me. That was, because what it was is like the vasculitis mixing with the tumor. It created a cramping situation, actually. Something to do with pressure, I think. I don't know all the ins and outs because I choose not to. It's too much. I choose not to care. And so when they did remove the organ, which I wasn't told they were going to, though I was quickly told, like a con man tells you, when I was by myself, that there was a chance that it would have to come out and I'd have to sign here and this and that. I was just like, whatever, you know. At that point, I know I'm in fully here right now, man. There's a reason why I have to have people around me, you know, doing this kind of thing. Like, without mom there every day, it just wasn't going to happen. Like, I'm not coming out of this. And so I wake up with that, and it's just this mass inside of it. You can feel every little piece, like where they cut. And it would cramp, and that cramp would just like, whew, and then you're just screaming at the top of your lungs for hours. And I just remember being there for so long and nobody like truly helping. They're like, oh, well, I gave you 50 micrograms of fentanyl. I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Thinking like, that's so nothing. That is nothing. And at one point, I had the nurse telling me, just hit your button, just hit your button, just hit your button. And I was like, button barely does anything at all. And it's every 15 minutes. Are you kidding me? The stupidity was endless. You just want to strangle somebody because they're so stupid. And then people just do not understand pain, it is what it is. You know, like, I don't want people to go through pain. But on the other hand, it is very frustrating that nobody that hasn't experienced it understands it. So it is what it is. But at one point, they finally willed me in after making fun of me as I'm in agony. The nurses, 2 nurses that were there, were constantly being assholes and making fun of me and shit. It was not a good environment. The hate, the dark heart. I could feel more than most people. So I can see when my eyes are closed. And I've seen her heart, and it has been darkened a little bit over. It was gray. It was darkened over a bit over time. I can't think of the word, but too much. She obviously shouldn't be there. Neither should the other one. So they woke me up, and at one point the doctor tells me to hit the button, and then he looks. Oh, you hit the button 600 something times. No shit. I hit the button, obviously. So I threw that controller at him. And then finally they knocked me out. And I remember waking up at one point. It was the first time they helped me. Like, the first true time they helped me in that hospital. And I remember waking up at one point and my back couldn't handle where I was sitting or something. Something wasn't right. Because there was a point before the surgery where I couldn't be on my back. I told them, you can't put me on my back. You can't. I will not be able to breathe. Like, my breathing will stop. It's just a thing right now. And I wake up on my back after one of the surgeries. And that pissed me off so bad because I can't speak. And thankfully, somehow I was able to get enough air to be able to tell them not on my back. I think it's the words I was able to get out. And then finally the nurse remembered, rolls me over, and I go, so I took air finally. And I was just like, why do you not listen to what I tell you? There's a reason why I tell you what I tell you. And so I remember him just like, was falling asleep like this, with his hands under my back for days. That's what he did.
Dang.
Yeah, I woke up like 3 days later, I guess. I still don't know. None of the time makes sense to me. I just remember waking up and being like, I feel pretty good. Don't want to move because I know there's a huge-ass gash and I'm really fat, so that scares me. Because it's kind of scary to me, too. And then, why would they cut a fat person open like this? And then he goes, can I go to sleep now? And I was like, yeah, of course. I'm not stopping you. He goes, okay. He goes, you don't know what day it is, man. I was like, no, of course I don't. He goes, it's been 3 days. I just want to sleep.
Oh my gosh.
It's like, I'm really sorry. Yeah, I put them through hell. It was a lot. There's like just 1,000 stories in there, but it's not worth going through. Because there's even a point where they roll you, the hospital takes you and they roll you in to do different tests and stuff. And they hire people from outside the hospital to push people around the hospital. And that's their job. That's their job. And I call them garages. People garages is what I was calling them. And it was usually dark, no lights, you know. It was always that way. And nobody was ever there either. So they'd roll you down a mile away from your damn hospital room, and you're around strangers, and some of them care. You can feel it. I can feel it, whatever. But then the ones willing you were tired, sore, and wanted to be home, you know, and that was it. And it was like, that's what you felt. And then you would get left in these little people garages, and you're left there for hours at a time. And nobody tells you what's going on. And I remember one time it was so bad, I had like lost control. I just started crying. And one of the ladies there, I think she was one of the technicians, she wasn't doing anything but reading. And she came over and she just sat with me and talked with me for like 3 hours. And that got me through that situation, which was nice of her. But then after that, I was just like, yeah, nobody's doing that to me again. Like, it's just not, this is unacceptable. You do that to anybody. And the nurse is like, well, if we would have known, we could have just gone down there and gotten you. And I was like, you did know. We have very clearly spoken this to you. Very clearly. It's just a lot of stupidity.
Yeah, I remember talking to you on the phone after, I think it was actually the day after that, I believe, after they left you in that space.
I wasn't too happy.
No, dude, you were in a dark place. I think it's the first time I've ever talked to you on the phone where I could just tell, like, you weren't well. You know, because you've always been even in those moments, you've been very optimistic. Like, we have conversations and good ones, and yeah, I don't
mess with my head.
No, it would. I mean, it'd mess with anybody's head, so it kind of sucks, man.
It just made you feel like a number.
It does. And I think it speaks to a bigger problem, too. I mean, with a hospital, you know, a place that's supposed to be taking care of people, I mean, clearly they're short-staffed from what it sounded like.
Very
They're not
short-staffed.
teaching the people what they need to do.
Doctors don't know basic shit.
And it sucks, man. And I feel like they're no longer there for you as the patient. They're there
and the government takes over so much stuff. It's just like with the medications, you know, it's like, this is the only way I get by every day, but, you know, let's keep talking about that for some reason.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah, no, it sucks, man. And I just think I think your story is really powerful in that way of just kind of really exploiting some of that stuff, because it shouldn't be that way. It really shouldn't.
No, it shouldn't, but I wish it wasn't. Yeah. It's impossible to find help, you know. And it's just, I mean, you can endlessly talk about it, and sure enough, like, when you have been doing this for as long as I have, you realize it's not like that just in a couple places. It's literally everywhere. There has not been a single place I have gone to, and I have been to a few states, where it's good. This is not good. It's quite the opposite. You'll find gems. Like, there are gems, you know, in the rough, but it's just like, they're very, very, very few. I can count them on one hand, and that's over a course of 20 years almost.
Yeah, it shouldn't be that way. It should be the opposite, right? It should be that you only see a few bad eggs. It's bad if it's the other way around. Even
my nurse practitioner, she was new to the whole thing. Not practitioner, sorry. Not hospice, but the other one, I can't think what it's called, that nurse that comes over. Can't think what it's called.
I don't remember.
Anyway, she comes over, and she's new to the whole thing, and she was like, she tries to help, you know, like, she was trying to help. And I told her straight up what's happening and that this is going to be a very hard business for her because I can tell what kind of person she is. She is very loving. Like there's a pureness in her that's pretty rare. I instantly knew she was new because second she came to that door and I was close enough to it, I could feel it was very pink energy. It's like she's a good pink and yellow. She was really good to be in that business, but she was unaware. So I told her it was going to be really difficult, but I really appreciated her trying. And I remember like 3 months, I think about 3 months, maybe 6 months went by, and she came over. She don't come much, and she just goes, I so disillusioned. Like it's you were so right. It's not good. She's just like nobody will help, you know. And it just like it really got to her. I can tell. It sucks. The whole situation sucks. There's a lot I try not to say because but it's not a fun situation to be in. We can move on from that.
For sure. So then, I mean, that's been, what has it been, a year, 2 years? How long's it been since that happened? The surgery and everything?
A little over a year.
A little over a year.
Because I just healed 3 months ago, where I started like feeling like it healed.
Yeah.
And it takes me a year to heal, so a little over a year. Yeah.
Yeah. So how are you feeling now?
Every day sucks, but it's like when it comes to that spot, it's better. Like my kidneys hurt. I say kidneys because even though I have one now, it's like phantom pain or something. And when the left one triggers up, the right one that's not even there anymore likes to trigger up sometimes. Or it's just the right one sometimes. It's weird. And then just, having the 100,000 other issues on top of what I have. So to put it into perspective, it's so much stuff where I had 4 or 5 doctors, I'll say 4 to lowball it, come in independently on their own and say they were going to stop looking for issues and everything else for like stuff because I have so many elements that they can't keep up. It's just too much to treat. Because I have 2 of the elements, or had them, I don't know anymore. I don't know everything I have. But 2 of them were so unbelievably rare. They were like the African one that he's like, I can write whole papers on you. And I might. He's like, I seriously might write papers because this doesn't happen. And he's like, so hopefully you don't have the third one. He goes, it comes in 1, 2, or 3. And if it comes in 2s, it usually comes in 3s. And he goes, if you got the third part of this disease, you're going to go blind. I was like, oh, that's a nice thing. That's fantastic. So there was a lot of, like, a bit of worrying about that. But I was just like, whatever's going to happen is going to happen at the end of the day. I just have to adapt somehow. But it's, I can adapt easier if I had help from a lot of, like, more help. Like, I have help now, and I'm beyond grateful for it. Because it just, I don't get through my days without it. But more assistance, like, that would be good for everybody. There's people, there's a kid last night I was watching, he has no bottom half of his body. He made that decision. I believe he was the one that made that decision. Not a decision I would have made. And he has no left arm. Half of it's missing. And he's got all kinds of other issues. And he's in so much pain all the time where his pain fits. Like, he actually starts shaking violently. Like, violently shaking. He looks like he has Tourette's and some other stuff.
Yeah.
It's just the pain. And he starts pouring sweat like I was. And I know that. Like, I know that. And I do not understand how he's doing that daily. Like, I don't get it. Because I know what that is. that's when I'm screaming, and that's not voluntarily. It's just happens. So that one broke my heart.
What I think's really neat to think about, though, at the same time, is like you've kind of made it through, like, the odds. You kind of beat the odds because what were they giving you? They were giving you, when you initially got leukemia, they only gave you what?
Oh, I don't know. It was crazy. Yeah.
Didn't they say you'd be? I mean, they said you wouldn't make it past 30 at least. I remember you saying something like that.
Well, it was way less than that. Well, I was number. Well, I'm 5. I was number 5 of the first 5 patients to be put on the first chemo drug that's like pill form for leukemia, and now there's, I don't know, 4 or 6 different medications out there, something like that. And I'm not even on that one anymore. Thankfully, it's been changed. It was horrible. I remember telling you all the time, like, every time my body literally stops my arm. Like, I don't have any more control in my arm when I go to take my meds sometimes, because it knows that this is poison. Like, you can feel it.
Yeah.
And thankfully, I don't have that same reaction with this one. So it is better. It's just, nothing was good about the whole situation.
Yeah. It's just cool that you're still here, you know? Enjoy all the moments we get to have. And like I was saying earlier today, like it's I mean, you seem healthiest I've seen you in a long time.
Yeah, I lost like 90 pounds. A little more than 90 pounds. Because I was at, what was I at? Like 343 or something like that. And then I had lost, I'm down to 252. No, 240 something. 248 or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I mean, you look healthy. I mean, even cognitively, you seem healthy mentally too.
Yeah, it doesn't feel that way to me. I think if you talk to D, you would probably say otherwise. It feels like the dyslexia and the ADD are really working against me at times.
Which is interesting. That's not what I'm seeing, at least from my perspective. So.
Oh yeah, I always lose like even basic words. Like before, I literally lost the thought. Like I couldn't find the word what, and I couldn't find the word they. Like they were just gone. Like I couldn't remember what they were. You know, It's annoying. But when you have those two conditions, that's what happens. It's basically your intelligence stays intact. There was a rocket scientist that has both of these conditions as well. And like he says, even your intelligence stays intact, but what happens is basically like running a slow processor. And so it just takes longer to find information, and you tend to like lose information, though it is there, and you can tell it's there. It's like a physical thing. I'm just about to reach it, but then it gets super dark, like pitch black, and I can't see. But I know it's there, and now I can't quite reach. Like, I physically can't reach it anymore. That's what it feels like in my head. And it's really frustrating when that happens. Happens constantly.